Hi, good evening, everybody. I'm John O'Loughlin, and the other gentleman on the screen is Mark Kulak of Housatonic Live. Hi, Mark. How are you tonight?
I'm great, John. Thank you for having me on again. How are you doing this evening?
I'm feeling great. I just lost about four chess games in a row. That's what I do to distract my mind when I'm a terrible chess player. And I don't ever I get better in little bitty tiny increments.
Uh-huh.
So I mean, like, it's crazy for me to keep playing, and most people would say, look, either get a chess book or study with somebody or just give it up. But to me, it gets my mind off of all the other stuff that's going on in my brain, and it's good. Just a little bit of competition, and it takes my brain away from just my most recent studies, which I keep digging deeper and deeper into the deep state. And I don't know if you've seen much of my work lately, but I've been looking at the the idea called Synarky, which is really a good name for the businessman's plot of 1933. It's a business uh, above everything philosophy where you you have this fraternity in terms of one of our great authors calls it the fraternity, in which it doesn't matter what country you're in, it's all about business, and it's business as usual, even in wartime. And these folks that conduct business that way, they don't care, they don't know about enemies, they just trade with anybody that wants to trade. you know they're in the money making business. And this combination of that aggressive mercantile, no holds barred trade policy with the corporate and formation supported by the elite families of old creates an atmosphere in which horrible things can happen and nobody's ever held accountable for them. And that in a kind of a way, it spells how we got from World War II to now. Is that these machinations keep going on behind the scenes. They're so deep that most people have no clue that they exist. Uh, tragedies are like, just, well, oh well, that just happened. Nobody's able to peel behind them anymore, and it's getting harder and harder. Um, you're one of the people that really, really works hard to try to uncover the the hidden hand behind our medical policies lately, to put it in as general way as possible. And so I always enjoy catching up with you. I don't know if you've got anything big to drop on us tonight, but it does look like Dr. Malone has become quite a cause celebre. At least I follow him on Twitter because I like to keep up with what he's doing. Um, and boy, he's making a big play. But he's one of your main topics lately. So why don't you fill us in on what's going on with Dr. Malone, and we'll go from there.
Possibly the main topic. And I did not see that coming when he first burst onto the scene, if you will. I think it was, I would have to look. I think it was sometime in the early last year, early to maybe early summer last year, when his Twitter account suddenly became really active. I don't know if he has a social media team beyond him and his wife, probably. And there's clearly a really, really big thing behind Malone. I doubt, he's just decided to step up and, be the master. That's not what's going on. He's been
Well,
recruited. He's been told, we need your help. You're going to help. It's what
but
you're
he's
going to
got all
do.
those horses. He has all these beautiful horses that he has to take care of. Why can't he stay and pet his horses and run them around the track? Does he have to go in and fulfill some service for mankind now?
His I was fortunate enough to be able to snag a 2016 version of his resume. And what is also available now to most people is his current resume. His current resume is online. He has his own consulting firm, which he's had for about 20 years, R.W. Malone Company or something like that. Says on the Joe Rogan show and in many other outlets that he is the inventor of mRNA. Now, the inventor is a very specific phrase. If he said, look, I worked with other people at the time, this concept of mRNA vaccine, using mRNA to create as a transfection to create immune response. I was part of those teams. I did some of the experiments, worked on some of the papers. That's actually, that would be a true statement. And it's actually still remarkably effective, I think, as far as stating what his role was. Most people who work in the sciences, I'm sure, would be thrilled to have been part of leading other leading scientists at a big moment like that. But he says, I am the inventor. And that means him and only him. There's no other way of looking at it, interpreting it. Now, his current resume, which was updated in June 2021, states in the very first sentence, he was the inventor of mRNA and DNA vaccination. Okay, that's great. And there's many other references to the word mRNA throughout his resume. Now, in that older resume, which was a 2016 version, which has since been deleted from other places, which is why I archive things before I even tell people I found them. There is no reference to the word for mRNA. It's just not in, and it's not like he has a one-page resume. It's about it's like 7 or maybe 12 pages long. There's one use of the phrase in a reference of one of the white papers that he worked on, and he lists about 50 white papers there with all the co-authors. So that's a rebranding. Now we all tweak our resumes based upon what job we're applying to, right? You need to show why your background and your skill set is a match for a role that you're applying for. You don't just have one resume. You tweak it a little bit, but that's a really, really big readjustment. Now, okay, so that means I'm suggesting that he's being disingenuous when he says he's the inventor of mRNA. Fine. But there's a much bigger point to
I just wanted to jump in because the other thing that you before you pass on from that, the other thing that you pointed out, which, if you guys want to catch up with Mark's research, get to Housatonic Live and his backups Live 2 and 3. But, as my most recent visits over there have shown that you've uncovered that even if he was part of it, that there was 2 other doctors that were involved, and this Dr. John Wolfe.
Or at least, yeah.
And that all I wanted to say was, if Dr. Malone were telling this story honestly, he would say with respect, name the other principal people involved in this quote unquote discovery, of which, of course, Dr. Wolfe had to have been included in view of the obvious documentation that you found. So I just think that it's another thing to weigh in the scale when we're looking at the credibility of Dr. Malone, to think, well, why would he leave off a respected colleague who really did deserve some credit?
That colleague deserves credit. Now that's someone he wasn't in the same company as that person. That person worked at University of Wisconsin, but there was a lot of collaboration between University of Wisconsin and this company called Vical, Vical, back in the late 1980s and early 1990s, regarding gene therapy, HIV vaccine research, and so on. There is literally dozens of doctors that all had individual roles, right? Like little incremental ideas. And then some had that, like you envision something, right? Some people may have the idea of, hey, maybe we could apply this technology instead of cancer. We could apply it for vaccines. And then another person would be like, well, maybe now that general concept is there, maybe that could be made possible by using this molecular compound. And then there are all these little things, right? And many people made contributions, and it's very difficult to say, one person invented the whole darn thing.
Okay.
So that's disingenuous. But I'm bringing this up for a very, very specific reason. Is the timing of when Malone burst onto the scene, okay, and when this rebranding occurred. I'm a big believer in we really don't get anywhere as researchers if we just listen to what people are saying, right, and then take it as fact. I think the best time to catch people with their pants down is when something happens where where a plan is moving along, and then there's a disruptive event where there needs to be a readjustment. And in that point in time, you can see how people's roles and what they're saying about things changed. That's a moment where you get a little bit of a glimpse into really what's going on. So I focus on, well, why did he go from working with these companies and DARPA, helping with determine if any existing therapeutics would be available and so on, to suddenly being the inventor of mRNA and speaking out against trying to raise awareness of some risks of how this technology is being applied right now. So that happened in June 2021. Last year, sometime around late summer, early fall, two other doctors. Again, there's so many doctors. Don't get too caught up in the specific names here, because I think it loses the point I'm trying to make. Two other doctors. One was at University of Pennsylvania. There was a Dr. Carico and a Dr. Weissman. Got all of this press. New York Times, CBS News as being the inventors. So now they were the two inventors, right? Because of and it gave a backstory about their role. And it was not Malone, it was them. Then suddenly in 2000, in middle of, that's the end of 2020. Now we're in the June of 2021. Malone comes onto the scene. He says he's the inventor of this mRNA. There's awards given to those other two doctors, and then a whole bunch of other people get roped in with them. And I'm like, okay, so, and none of these people will mention the name of Dr. John Wolfe. Not one. Who is, again, not the inventor of all of it, okay? I think he was probably the first person who said, you know what, maybe this could be used for immunization purposes. And he didn't make it work, but he provided the concept. And when providing that concept in that research, Malone's name was also on the paper, but Wolfe's was the main name. So something disruptive happened. Something was not going according to plan. And now Malone is there. They chose Malone for this role. I doubt, he just, made a few phone calls and said, hey, I'd like to be doing this. He was chosen for that role. And those other two doctors aren't getting quite as much press time right now. So something is not going according to plan. And that is what I'm trying to focus on. And the more you look at Malone, I've been digging into where he's worked, when he's worked, research papers, people he has collaborated with. I'm trying to refrain from making too many comments about Malone's character. I'm mostly very disappointed in most of the other alt media and citizen journalists, not this community, mind you, this small group here, relatively speaking, who refuse to ask any questions related to this mountain of evidence. They will run away from it, put their hands over their ears. They don't want to see it. They don't want to think about it. And the push of Malone onto the throne is just, it is accelerating. Now, he was on Steve Bannon just 2 or 3 days ago, and Malone is talking about this mass formation psychosis. He's talking about a potential hemorrhagic fever outbreak now in China, which could be an Ebola-like virus. Who knows? Maybe even a mutation of coronavirus. And how many of these problems are the fault of the Chinese. So the whole thing about, lab origin, lab leak, what was the role of Fauci and all this other stuff, right? It's all going to be about China. And Bannon's War Room is perfectly happy to go along with that. It's all going to be whitewashed right now. All of it, all of our questions, all our concerns, and no one will take into account any of these other questions or topics. I have Malone connected to so many things right now. It's I don't even know how to summarize it. I'm not overhyping it right now. I've told you about in the last show, we went over the how for emergency use authorization for new therapeutics heading into this COVID-19 pandemic. It needed to be shown that none of the other existing several thousand medicines, right, would provide benefit. And Malone played a huge role in well, things were tested, but the tests never quite worked out, and they couldn't quite find enough patients over here, and it was no like clear evidence of blocking it, just going along. But as it turns out, nothing else was really quite available. Yet he could still say, well, people should take this medicine, that medicine, even though he played a big role in those research, I should say that verification not working out. He had the exact same role with the Zika virus outbreak. He was down in South America. Oh, well, we should try this medicine, that medicine, but this Zika virus thing is just so novel. It's so unique. We've never seen anything like it. All the same language we would need to approve new mRNA medicine, new therapeutics for Zika. And that's exactly what Fauci was working on in 2015, 2016. Moderna and so on were queuing up mRNA vaccines for Zika virus. Same thing. The same play was coming out. And that, scary enough, he was collaborating with USAMRIID, United States Army Infectious Disease Research Facility, and I think directly with Sina Bavari on that. Directly. Same play. Sina Bavari, lab leak guy, scientific director at USAMRIID for 20 years, just happened to leave August of 2019, and now he started his own company and is serving as a consultant for Moderna, BioNTech. Maybe it's one of the other mRNA vaccine makers. The Ebola outbreak was 2014. Well, guess what? The first Ebola vaccine, which was a retrovirus, I think it was a company called SVRS or something like that. It was an Ebola vaccine that was manufactured up in Winnipeg, Canada. There's Canada's huge microbiology laboratory. And guess what? Would you believe that Malone was with a company called Newlink that was actually the middleman between USAMRIID, probably again working with Sina Bavari, and this major laboratory up in Canada? And don't even get me started at who is a friend of Dr. Anthony Fauci, who was actually working with Fauci directly while he was sitting in prison on potential uses of gene therapy for Ebola virus. And then this Sina Bavari, I'm just going to keep piling it on, John. Just kick back and relax. I'm just going to keep piling it on because I'm feeling a little fired
Who's
up
in
right
prison?
now.
I'm lost. Who's in prison?
Huh? I won't say. I won't
Oh,
say.
okay.
That's a secret, but I know. Someone who's probably going to be on the media in the future. Well, you'll figure that out. You guys will figure that one out.
Interesting.
Now, this Sina Bavari was also an anthrax expert. Okay, I think Sina Bavari was one of the superiors of Bruce Ivins. Probably the superior that Bruce Ivins complained about being hostile to work for. The Bruce Ivins who was accused of writing those anthrax letters and taking the total fall for all of those anthrax letters, and who unfortunately suicided himself, as if a good Christian man is going to risk going to that dark place, which they're not supposed to do because they're afraid of being falsely accused of something. The reason why Bruce Ivins was pinned for that, or they were able to do it, is because it so happens that a doctor, and people would know this if they watched the Bruce Ivins series, a woman named Dr. Nancy Hagewood provided some stories about Bruce Ivins. that he stole her notebook and was a little creepy back in the 1970s when he bumped into her and maybe spray painted something on her car. This is the total amount of character assassination against Bruce Ivins came from Nancy Haywood. Oh my goodness. Would you believe that Robert Malone actually worked with Nancy Haywood going back to 1989? I wouldn't even be surprised if he actually looked around and recruited Haywood to provide that negative character information against Bruce Ivins. I can't even believe how many things I'm just able to dig into here, and no one, and even if I'm wrong, no one will, aside from this awesome group community here, and I have a few other researchers I work with, Billy Ray Valentine, John Brisson, we've read the documents. There's other cool people, Dr. McCarran. Shout outs to all my friends there. But many of the other people who get platform boosted will not mention any of this stuff. Malone comes in and they kiss his butt, and that's it. There's no questioning any of this stuff because supposedly he's the purveyor of truth and trying to get down to all of the dangers within the medicine. And even though he's actually working on his own gene therapy right now for coronavirus, that information is coming out, which doesn't mean he's actually making it. It means he's representing the interest of another company making it. And I'm not quite sure which one it is yet, but that's what was disclosed on the Steve Bannon's War Room. So this fake heroism thing and the unwillingness of so many, I would still want to think are going to pull through other citizen journalists to get into this stuff. They're just not doing it. And he's being protected. And I feel as though the more myself and others have been able to dig, the more he gets boosted. I think his show, his appearance with Joe Rogan was possibly the highest rated podcast of all time. So it appears as though the machine is just going to say, you know what? All of this is because of China. And yeah, you know what, Americans, you better prepare for a universal vaccine in the future. Nothing else to see here. Let's move on. And that's the alt media for you. At least the people that get promoted. It's tough to see. It is a little crushing on the spirit. But we move on. We move on. We have to. I don't think we have any other choice right now. It's not about Malone. This wouldn't be happening if other people would just do their freaking jobs. It just goes to show how much complicity there is in this, or unwillingness to question, because people need a hero so bad, because it's so dark, John, that they just will not want to ask any tough questions. Sorry, there's my kickoff rant.
Steve Bannon is not somebody that is ever going to have a huge following. I mean, he's somebody that has a certain part of the Republican world. He doesn't have the libertarian part. He may be able to get maybe the gun lobby and some others. That's just me thinking. But I don't see Steve Bannon as a big player. You have that whole thing. There was a picture of him, wasn't it him in Wuhan with the doctor, the female doctor, Dr. Xing, the Bat Lady. There's all kinds of ways that he is positioned as a bad guy for the Democrats to throw stuff at. And
yeah,
there's no Democrat in the world that's going to follow Steve Bannon. So I don't know. I mean, it's not as bad as you think. In other words, I don't think that a whole lot of people are going to have their minds changed by Steve Bannon. He's obviously an active an agent, with clients, that he's working for. Maybe they're very, very high level clients, but I don't know. I don't watch him, and it's pretty obvious. I try not to watch a whole lot of mainstream stuff anyway. I don't have time for it. I'm reading so many books.
Oh,
So,
I can
but
I
so just turn off the TV and keep doing what you're doing. I think there's plenty of hope. I really do. Um,
I don't mean to suggest that Bannon himself has a big reach. I don't know what his numbers are, but the Robert Malone interview on Joe Rogan
yeah,
was
that
enormous. That were
that's a big
enormous
deal. And
numbers, and it was all orchestrated. The Twitter taken down, hours before the interview, and then the interview, and then it's released like I think it was like the New Year's Eve or something like that. I mean, it was so perfectly orchestrated to get maximum visibility.
he's a Pied Piper. He's being built up as a Pied
Yes.
Piper, to lead the children astray in some way. And in order to do that, he's throwing out all kinds of gems. Here's this and here's this and here's this, and yeah, you shouldn't be doing this to children, 5 to 11. And he does make some points that I agree with. He makes the same points. In other words, when he starts talking about mass formation, well, we know that he wasn't the person that came up with that idea.
No.
That Belgian psychologist that was very popular about a month ago, and the term mass formation came from him. And so when you have him just parroting something else that has gotten a lot of play in social media, then yeah, that's an indication that he's trying to grab that spot of being the Pied Piper. I'm leading the parade, and we don't know where he's going to lead us astray. But those of us that have a bit of wisdom from our studies know that we shouldn't rely on him, and that I guess is the bottom line with Robert Malone. So why? Who and why are setting him up to make him look like a fearless leader that we should all follow?
Um, Something did not go according to plan. I'm trying to figure out what that was. Were the Has the implementation of the medicine been much worse than some feared? Have a couple of small groups like ourselves have had a far bigger impact than anyone wants to give us credit for during that period of time? Something is not going right now, because if the plan all along was to have Malone being where he is right now, he would have updated that resume before 2019. He wouldn't have waited until the summer of 2021.
Hmm.
So something is off the rails right now, and I can't figure out what that is. Um, I think I think that there's a really big concern at starting to talk about this network of scientists and what's been going on there. Um, when this Carrico and Weissman, who I can find very few connections with them and other people in this field. Now, Malone, for example, or this Tom Wolfe, okay? I have them working with all the minds in the Salk Institute, Laderberg, Stanford, Berkeley. They're all connected. And then there's these two other scientists way over here in Pennsylvania. They certainly did not just figure it out on their own over a water cooler break. Okay. That's a way to say, look at these people over here. I'm sure they're fine people and plenty brilliant. Okay. But that was a way to get the attention away. And I think that the eyeballs are getting a little bit too close right now to the real nexus of this, the connections with HIV, the connections with Bruce Ivins and 9/11. Everyone,
The HIV.
9/11 is going to be solved if people can ask real questions and do some real digging on what's going on with coronavirus and the AIDS epidemic. These are all deeply connected things. That's all that matter of fact. A lot of times, the same people, and all three.
I've been identifying people involved in the Synarky, as I said at the top of the show.
Yeah.
And one of those that we are absolutely certain of is Dick Cheney.
Oh
Vice
yeah.
President Cheney is part of this business as usual, no matter what scheme, where all the great elite people and the old family wealth and the new corporate wealth and the wealth of all the churches, and it's all fungible wealth among these people that just take care of each other, are all working to take all the wealth from the rest of us and put it into just one big pile of wealth that they could administer while we turn into happy serfs. That's the Klaus Schwab World Economic Forum plan. And
Well,
and if this is the plan and Cheney is involved, then let's tie that to the anthrax attacks in which Cheney was given uh, an antidote to Cheney and George W. when they were the president and vice president at the time of 9/11. Tell us about that. And are we starting to see the sides line up with Cheney being perhaps connected with this Synarky that I'm working on? And uh, anyway, your comments on that?
well, yeah. On the day of 9/11, there was a distribution of I forget what the brand name of it is, but an anthrax. I want to say vaccine might be a strong word, but something to like a prophylactic, I think, to help people against anthrax, which
It
is
was
odd.
Cipro.
That's incredible vision, knowing that that's going to be coming while the buildings are still on fire. They're still trying to rescue people, and you're thinking about anthrax. That's odd. And then the week after 9/11, Cheney was running around the White House saying, we have to vaccinate every American against smallpox. Like, what is up? Really? That's what's on your mind? There's not even any smallpox left in the world. It's supposedly been eradicated. I don't believe that story, by the way. And now that's where you want to put your priority. The hyper focus on biologicals before the day of and afterwards, and even before these anthrax letters were sent, is a huge red flag. It is not studied well enough. Was an inside job? I think I'd bet my life on it right now. I think it's pretty obvious. But it wasn't just an inside job. I think it's a bunch of inside jobs all doing this, right? And that's the dimension of it that I don't think is quite seen here. And Rumsfeld running the Pentagon. Why do you put a pharma guy at head of the Pentagon? Yes, he was in the military. Yes, he had some military IQ. He was a pharma exec, though, going in there. That's kind of a strange decision that Bush made. And I think Rumsfeld was very much aligned with Cheney's idea of, yeah, we should start vaccinating people against smallpox. Why? We don't even know a way to distribute smallpox in the air like that. It doesn't make any sense.
Well,
That's
Cheney
where
had
the
worked
focus
for
was.
Rumsfeld. I'd
I'm
say
sorry?
Rumsfeld had been Cheney's boss before that.
Yeah.
So it's, that's the way that it rolls downhill, right? I mean, if you're wondering why Cheney was saying everybody needs a smallpox vaccine, it's because he's doing it for Rumsfeld.
He might be doing it for Rumsfeld or their peers in a way. I mean, sometimes the real power structure isn't always represented by who's the boss.
Not at all.
Although that's a logical thing to believe. I think they were more like peers, I believe.
Let's go back to
Um,
smallpox. You mentioned you didn't believe that that they had destroyed it all. What I read was that they said that they had gotten rid of it everywhere except for there was some uh, in a super safe place in Moscow, and then at the CDC in Atlanta. Other than that, it's all gone. You made a comment that you didn't believe that.
I don't believe, with viruses being so small, you can't even see them. Is it really possible that you can eliminate every viron of smallpox on the entire planet Earth? I don't
So
understand how they could be so confident of that. Have they checked like every person living in every village, every city, Aboriginals, like every single living person, and they've made sure there's not one single viron, something that you stack a million of them next to each other, and it's only like the thickness of I don't know, something small. I don't know how you can make that statement. It's a ridiculous statement. It's a statement that's only made to get people to believe in the power of vaccination.
or
And then this whole Indian blanket smallpox story. Oh yeah, all these They double the number of Native American Indians, double it or triple it, and then be like, oh well, that's how many were really there until the smallpox blankets were handed out, and the smallpox vaccines say 50 million there and 100 million there. You listen to them, you think 1 out of every 2 people who ever died in history died of smallpox. So stupid. They just keep inflating the numbers, just like the Spanish flu. Just like the Spanish flu. You look at the newspapers from 1918, 6 million to 10 million. And it pretty much stays there until the 50s or 60s. And then it's 20 million, then 25 million, then 30 million, then 50 million. And in Fauci's in Congress the last 20 years, that's 50 to 100 million. And then you get someone coming along like, well, it's just for population increase, it's really 250 million. And then someone else will quote it. It'll be like, yeah, it probably was 250 million. Based off what? There are no bodies to back it up. They had 2 people in the British Navy come back and provide a report to someone in the New York Times saying of the British people in the British Navy in World War I that were at ports in India, there was a pretty high case rate of flu, and a fair number of people died. They took that one story, they extrapolated it, and they assumed 5 to 10% of all of India died. There's no bodies, there's no graves, there's no newspaper articles. And we got these blank, 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 blank running around Congress saying that they should control every aspect of our lives and our bodies because of this mythical story of the Spanish flu. They never even found the virus, John. They never found the virus. All these people had various forms of bacterial pneumonia, weakened immune systems. Food quality was not very good. They never found the virus. They had to dig up a couple of frozen corpses up in Alaska. They said they found some fragments of viron. And this is the proof that the Spanish flu absolutely positively happened because a pig and a chicken rolled around in the mud one day. And that's what's going to happen again. Millions or hundreds of millions or trillions of people are going to die unless they can control everything about our lives, monitor everything, and have regular immunizations and vaccinations using God knows what type of technology. It's all based on stories, things which didn't happen. Look, I don't want to die, and I want my family to be healthy, right? If I knew that death was certain because a pig and a chicken were going to roll in the mud in Kansas every year, I would be willing to sign up. I would sign up to anything. If I knew that death was certain because chickens and pigs roll in the mud in Kansas and make new viruses every year and new things, and everyone's going to die unless they give us the mRNA. Fine. If that was an absolute certainty, sure. But it's all based off of nonsense stories. The whole Spanish flu thing, millions of troops across the world died. Sometimes their families as well. They got really sick. It was a horrible pneumonia because of conditions which were unique to that war. It was a tragedy. We should respect those losses, those kids, those young fathers and nurses who died in that war for the hundreds of thousands or millions that it was. Be appreciative that it's not going to happen again. Instead, it's completely misrepresented, fabricated with information, and that is constantly used. No one will bring this up. It completely cuts this whole thing off at the knees. This whole pandemic is going to kill everyone unless Fauci can pump people with genetically engineered, recombinant DNA vaccines. It doesn't need to happen. It just ends right there. No one will question it. And it's driving me nuts. Instead, it's, you know what? Malone's a good guy. He's got PTSD from this doctor who stole his patent, and he's fighting for us. And how dare you, Mark, question this good guy? He was just sitting on his horse farm and maiming his horses and whatever and trying to save the world. He's speaking out he's trying to save the children, even though no one ever would have gotten injected with this darn stuff in the first place if he didn't bungle intentionally, I believe, the testing on those existing therapeutics. Let's not forget that. He should be grilled about that. No one will ask him. Nobody will ask him. I'm sorry.
What happened to the surgeon? What happened to the Surgeon General? What happens? Don't these people have work to do? And then we have a Supreme Court justice.
Repeating
Who,
misinformation. I think she believes in it. I
yeah,
really
she
do.
believes it because she's part of the mass formation. I mean,
there is that. Look,
why else would
my
she
belief. There's a lot of individuals who simply cannot process how much they've been bamboozled with medical misinformation. And I don't hold them accountable one bit. A lot of people are making decisions, the best decisions they know how for them, their families. Information is repeated, which is inaccurate or out of context. And most people, I think, are doing it without really aware of what they're doing.
'Cause they're watching
But
television.
someone in the CDC, if the CDC was really doing its job, should have reached out to Sotomayor and said, you know what, we heard what you said, and of course we're concerned, but this is actually the proper way to understand and break down the numbers. And that's what everyone should be doing, right? Again, if it really was the case that chickens and pigs and snakes and camels and whatever else in food markets and wet markets in Kansas and anything else were creating new viruses that was absolutely certain to kill everyone unless we inject this stuff into ourselves, well, guess what? I don't want to die. I want to live. I want my family to live. I'll do it. But the whole thing is based off of nonsense. The whole thing is based off of nonsense. Meanwhile, you don't need to be, a geneticist to see that we have plenty of health problems due to engineered food, due to contaminants and off gases from all kinds of chemicals and products that we make. And we don't have to all go super green crunchy, but there's things which we could be doing right now, having intelligent, rational, constructive conversation to improve the quality of a lot of people's lives without really too much expense. None of that is happening right now. It's the whole government of the United States is about a vaccine for something which isn't even understood properly, based off of a nonsense narrative from what happened in 1918. It is really exhausting, and every time I feel as though we make a little bit of progress, the money and the boosting of Malone just goes up that much higher. We have good days, and then we have days where, like, I quit. you know,
So
fine. Just let it happen, man.
your passion is important, and you've done an awful lot of work to get to this point. It's not, just the people that scream bloody murder, and there's so many talking heads that are experts at that and do it every time they're on the screen. It's because you have the depth of knowledge that you are absolutely disgusted in your guts at what's going on here. And that, I hope, can be contagious with other people, folks in the chat room, myself. I can intellectually say, yeah, this is a bunch of malarkey, but then I move on to something else and try to
Mhm.
figure it out. But what's really important is in this situation is I think the emotional content that you're giving us, and so thanks for that. You know you said you were going to let it all come out, and you are, and that's good.
Uh,
Um, I think we do have to now take a step back, and in the last part of the show, let's ask you this one:
Okay.
Why? What is the what's really going on behind the scenes? Okay, you've indicated in many of your shows that this appears to be a big trial of some sort. I've seen data. You've probably seen these little graphs where they say that there's different batches of the uh, of the therapy, right? We call it therapy. There's different batches, and some of them turn out to have a lot more bad results than most of them do. And so there's indications that this is targeted, that this is, timed, that there is a very sophisticated, almost military style campaign that is not just random, but is unfolding on purpose. Um, you've had a chance to look at it very closely. Can you see any more than that as to what's really going on behind the scenes here? Let's just put the malarkey aside and say, you know, what's really behind it?
Several factors. Um, One, and is I think there's consensus that if this has a higher impact on the elderly population, that will be okay. The way hospitals are being rewarded right now, or not rewarded based upon decisions that are made, I think does guide policy, does guide treatments. And there have been here's one of those crazy statistics. Okay, I don't know if it's still true or not. The average age of a COVID-19 death is actually higher than the average life expectancy of a person in the United States.
I remember hearing that. Yeah.
Meaning, this is one of those freakonomics, right? Things, right? If some random person were to be told, you know what, you're going to die of COVID someday, that actually means you're going to live a longer than average life. You'd be like, yes, that's how old the average age is, and it is going to have an impact on the underfunded pensions, Social Security, and so on and so forth. And this is why I'm terrified every time I see these summits about global health, and standing next to all these geneticists are people representing the IMF and World Bank. I'm like, it's a little bit of a conflict of interest to have the bankers there funding selectively the medicines, which will have an impact on the demographics, and hence, what happens to different currencies. That seems like a radical conflict of interest. Okay, so there's that. I think there is a vision ultimately to create a system where many people, definitely probably in the United States, maybe worldwide, are on some form of regular immunization, combined with it has to be using genetic methods, DNA or adenovirus vector DNA, mRNA, something of that nature, and extremely high levels of surveillance. Things which measure, body temperature, pulse, all kinds of other things, as frequently and as many places as possible. And through this, I believe the geneticist will collect massive quantities of information. And it's not really because they care, who's going to 7-Eleven, to get a shake. It's because they want to see what are the impacts on people's choices and capabilities throughout their lives based upon all of the inputs, meaning their relationships, their activity, what they eat, what they breathe, where they live, and what they get vaccinated with. Because this is the only way it will ever be determined really how to interface with and manipulate and control the human genome. They mapped it out with the Human Genome Project, but the computers can't quite figure out exactly what's what. And you can't just, although you can change someone's DNA on a cell level, you can't change all the cells in their body at once. So they need to understand really how to interface with these cells specifically. And these medicines provide a gateway to be able to do that. And all this stuff spills out of HIV research, by the way. HIV research, which has gotten more money than the moon landing mission, is really the base technologies which have led to much of this stuff. It's always been about the immunizations. It is a big power play. I would go so far as to state that the one thing that backs the U.S. dollar right now is an agreement that all Americans, the bodies of all Americans, will be available for routine genetic testing and monitoring forever. I think that is more valuable than all of our land and all of our resources combined. If you just do a number of like $10 million of a person dying of a medical malpractice lawsuit, that means that the U.S. is worth $4,000 trillion right now in human capital and human bodies available for genetic testing on. That is worth more than all of our gold, all of our resources, all of our land, all of it. That is what they want. They don't want to kill people, aside from maybe the old. They want people to test on. The simulators won't do it. Humanized mice won't do it. They need people, and they need people monitored, and they need people pumped up regularly with their medicines. They need to do it willingly. And instead of people saying, hey, you know what? I think this research is pretty cool. I'd like to volunteer and get a cut for it. No, I think they want to trick everyone into succumbing to this. It's not really a power play. It's really about one of the greatest experiments ever run in history, really. And people need to fall into it because of fear or political division or whatever manipulation. I've been trying to become a big proponent in constantly being an enthusiast of sorts of the of fan. I love research. I love the possibilities of digging in. I think all the technologies and the science behind it is fascinating. I would like more scientists and engineers to get involved in this, but this stuff needs to be done above board. What's happening right now is people are being destroyed. Their families are being destroyed. They're being manipulated into succumbing to this stuff. And I don't think it's just a one shot deal. There's no way to be able to provide a consistent how would you say, a set of genes or nucleic acids in every bottle. There's billions of bottles made with millions of individual nucleic acid strands in each one. You telling me that in the printing process of this medicine, they never make one nucleic acid out of place? There's variations there. Did you know that not everyone responds the same way to the same mRNA? Males and females build slightly different proteins in response to the same mRNA sequences. It's also been observed that people may build slightly different protein variants based upon their age, based upon their diets, based upon their race, and other specific genetic factors. Meaning it's not just, good batch, bad batch. There's literally millions of different responses right now worldwide for a countless number of conditions based upon this, just even if the medicine was all the same, which it's not. I think it's impossible to make it all identical. And there's, again, no discussion of this stuff. No discussion, no flushing it out. It's just, we shouldn't do the kids. Well, I agree we shouldn't do the kids. We should have stopped before we said these other therapeutics don't even work. Matter of fact, we should have stopped while they were making this crap in the lab, and then oops, it just spilled out. Yeah, right. That wasn't an accident. It's all been very much planned, very carefully planned. And the deaths and the losses have not been faked. I don't believe in that stuff. But I do believe that some of the reasons why things have happened is not being understood or appreciated. That's where the hoax comes in. Does that answer your question?
Well, no, I don't still don't see the guy behind the curtain, I'm still waiting for Toto to pull the curtain and we can see L. Frank Baum or whoever is, there with the handle running the green empire of Oz. I don't see it yet.
Even
But
if we did, I'm not
what I
sure it would
do
make
see,
any difference. If we
what
are
I,
not able to work together and love each other and respect each other and work constructively on the other side of the curtain, it's just as well that someone behind the curtain is playing with us like we're little toy soldiers. I'm not sure we're ready for it. So I'm looking at myself introspectively. What can I do? How can I grow to be someone that is capable of working with others and connecting with myself as well to move up? So it's I know that's kind of a deep thing. I'm not saying that there's good people on the other side of the curtain, but the only thing that's really in my control is me. All right, it all starts here. It all starts introspectively, and I encourage other people, instead of trying to find the evil person, you know what? You find the bad guy or the bad woman. That could happen too. And then what? Then what? What's next? Well, we're still all flawed people and capable of taking it to that next level. So I'm trying to balance both at the same time. I feel so spiritually grounded right now. I cannot tell you. I love my family so much. All of these things are happening at the same time that I'm feeling like I'm living in a scene from the Book of Eli, some post-apocalyptic world. It doesn't make any sense, I know. But that is actually how I feel, John.
well, I'm glad. You're from my point of view, your generosity is has to be tempered by what you said earlier, and that is that clearly there's a conspiracy going on here, a conspiracy to exploit
Yes.
humans.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And the people that are doing that, whether, we prosecute them or not, they are working together. There's a common scheme or plan.
Oh yeah.
And you can name some of the names, and we can try to prosecute them, as you say. That's not the answer. The answer is to pull back the whole curtain, to see the whole mechanism, to show how the gears work, how the wheels run, how this person has accomplished that, and the history of how they got to where they are, because we have to expose it. But really, Mark, I think just for tonight, I'd like to say that what we really I would respectfully ask the medical community of the world to put an instant moratorium on these experimental jabs, and just
Yes.
just just put a moratorium on it now, because we know that the mortality rate is very, very low, and we've got so many other big problems like cancer. And I was just reading, in Canada, a report today that uh, it was the Minister of Health up there that said, half of the people of Canada are going to have cancer during their lifetimes, and 1/4 of the people of Canada are going to die of cancer. And I said, well, how? And this was Corey Morningstar's reporting in Twitter, and she says,
Hi.
how did this get normal? Well, who normalized that? You know? And so now we're spending, as you say, 99% of all our energy on this little virus thingy, where people are suffering, dying of things that should have a lot more attention than this little virus, in my opinion. So, and for all the harm that's been done, I say let's call for a moratorium. Mark, what do you say?
Please, please, let's get this stuff above board. Let's try to find a way to be able to embrace the scientific process and research with reason. And please, and the people, there are the scientists within and the other people within the medical community. They have more opportunity than you and I will ever have to make a difference. They could write just a few tweets and literally have a huge impact on the world. I would I would beg for that kind of power. I'm jealous of it. We don't have it from the outside, just bickering and some posts and some videos. Not to say we're not having any impact, but those are the individuals who really can do things. And yes, please just leave the kids out of it. Please, we'll support you. Really, just please, right now. Unfortunately, in my town, we're already at 90% vaccination for school kids. It's like, well, we almost already completely missed it. It's already almost too late as far as round one goes, but maybe we
Well,
can cut back on round two and three and boosters and all this other stuff.
and next year's kids, the ones that are in kindergarten now, they'll be coming into the pipeline for the shots, so we can save them. I agree. I call my website screamingospreys.com, because you and I were there when the osprey screamed on the boat, and she was protecting her nest. And we have to scream now. We have to say moratorium, moratorium on these mRNA jabs, until we can sit back and study the data, and use, as you say, Mark, reason to move forward with whatever is really going on behind the curtain.
Yes, yes. That is our test. That is our test around the world. Can we do that? Can we find a balance?
All right.
I think we
Screaming
can. Will
Ospreys,
we? Who knows? But we can.
time to call for a moratorium. Get in touch with your medical people, the local medical societies, your health department. That's where to talk. That's where the action can be.
Tell the senators to quit doing candle vigils for January 6th, and seriously, with all of these other problems, you're spending your day lighting candles for the January 6th. It's so, I don't even know.
It's
I
ritualistic.
cannot read the news because I immediately,
Yeah.
like, what, I get so, disappointed. It's only written to make people nuts. So people, did you read the news today? I'm like, no. That's why I'm
Oh,
still happy.
well, that's what
I wouldn't be smiling now if I read the news.
Ray McGovern says, and he's the great retired CIA guy that's been a great whistleblower over the years. He says, don't read the news. Don't listen to the news. It will screw you up.
Don't
You know,
read
get
the
your
news from a month ago. All right.
get your information from people you trust.
Yes.
Don't try to figure it out. You can't figure it out. It's too complicated. There's too many layers of deceit.
And I'm sorry if there were questions in the chat I didn't get to. I apologize. Just having my conversation here with John. You guys know how to reach me, HousatonicITS.com. I got my email up on the top. Having a bunch of strikes on my channels right now. I'll address my community soon. So I'm trying to find new ways to organize stuff. It is what it is. We have to deal with the things as they are. But we'll deal with that. So you know how to reach me through there. And thank you to my supporters. And thank you, John, for having me on.
Thanks very much, Mark. It's been a great evening. I do appreciate your time, and we'll talk again soon.
We will.
Good night, everybody.